Thank you for encouraging me to do this. Thank you all for coming. This is actually my first formal demonstration. I did one, I think, for Masterworks when I did a workshop for the miniatures. So I'm hoping that you all enjoy it, and it's not like watching paint dry. So anyway. I thought I'd start out with a PowerPoint to kind of tell you what some of my thoughts. And I thought, since it was an amazing privilege to be able to live in Zion for a month. I lived at this little house, the Grotto House, which is kind of in the middle of the canyon, and it was so cool because, for the most part, you have to park your car in Springdale and get on a bus, and go up and down the canyon because it's so small, and the number of people that go there is enormous. So to be able to drive up and down and stop whenever I wanted and take pictures and do plein air painting was really amazing. And this little room here was the living room, and that's how I set up my studio. And one of the things that just was so exciting about being in Zion was to understand some of the geology. And this is the Navajo Formation. And the Navajo Formation was formed by sand dunes, millions when Earth was Pangea, and the debris from when the Appalachian Mountains were as tall as the Himalayas, all that erosion is what caused the sand dunes to form that particular formation. And I just got caught, and that was just one of the layers, and I really it was just so excited about that whole idea. And this is crossword, or I can't, darn it, I wish I could remember. But anyway, this, if you see the lines in here, that's actually fossilized wind patterns, So that definitely, I wanted to definitely bring those thoughts into my work. There's so many paintings I want to do. This is the Watchman Tower, and this is kind of, I'm learning how to do landscape because I've done mostly skies. But and then this one I thought was so cool because these are the tops of the towers. Wow. Like you drive up to Kolob Terrace, and these are the tops of the towers that you see when you're in the canyon. And I bought a bunch of books on Utah painters and canyon painters, and one of the things that I noticed was a lot of people were working with light and shadow, and so I'm going to be doing that. And the one on the far left, that was actually a nighttime picture of after it snowed. So we'll see what happens. And then I love the colors. I'm just really looking forward to working with all the greens and I look at it as abstractions and variations in tonal values and hues, and I'm just really looking forward to exploring of this. I have 6 months from when I left to get a portfolio in, so I'm wanting to really give them some good work. And then one of the things that really, I love doing trees, and the idea of, that these formations were formed from, or partly from organic debris, along with, and juxtaposed to present day organic material, that it's just kind of an ongoing process. And even though the canyon kind of seems tamed because it has a paved road, you know, and then they paved a lot of the hikes because there's so many people that go on it. While, right before I was there and then after, 2 people died from flooding in the Narrows, and there were rock slides, and so it's not, you know, it's not like it's like a process that is happening, and it's nature, it's you know, what am I trying to say? It's just a really powerful place in my view. So this is one of the paintings that I did. I did that in my studio, and then I was really caught with the idea of the light and the dark in the canyons. So anyway, I highly recommend it. I'm thinking it's forming in my brain to go back in October. I met some people there that it would be fun to see again, and the woman that was a volunteer was in charge of me, was just super, super nice. Okay, so let's get to skies. Any questions about Zion? So why paint skies? I grew up in Illinois, and I used to, you know, we drive, and Illinois is just like really flat. In fact, somebody said the only way you know you're moving in Illinois is because the electric poles go out. So I spent a lot of time looking at skies. I used to get on my bicycle and ride out into the cornfields, and my father was a pilot, and so he was very interested in weather and clouds. And I think I did my first sky painting when I was 20 years old. I think I did it in watercolor. Anyway, but I moved to Taos in 1982 with the intention of becoming a professional artist. And I thought, well, what am I going to paint, you know? And part of the reason I'm in the Southwest is because I don't really like painting a lot of green. And so I really, I kind of like, well, what am I looking at? And what I was looking at was the skies. And so I started taking pictures, and I painted in oils and pastels in Taos. And then I moved to Placitas in 2000. And I mean, who builds their house for their painting purposes? Like, when I realized I had done that, I was like, wow, you know. But I really combed through Placitas, and I finally found a hill that had a western view, and where I could, you know, take pictures and kind of live in that landscape. And I started painting seriously in pastels in 2002. Sunsets to me are like a spiritual experience, and I know you all know what I'm talking about. Sunsets are very popular. People love to take photographs of sunsets. And Key West, I was in Key West one time, and there's this thing where people just, they all head out and stand on and drink and watch the sunset together as a community. So I really like that sense of spirituality and that sense of awe. When I had been living in New York prior to moving to New Mexico, there was a lot of like angry kind of abstract type painting, and I thought, I don't want to do that, you know, I want to contribute beauty through my artwork, and I think sunsets are really beautiful. Also aesthetically, I love the color, like, you know, all those pastels that you go like, oh, it makes your toes wiggle. You can find those in those colors and sunsets. And also, it's like the sky is whiteboard, you know, and every day it's different. You know, the abstract compositions and the lines and the rhythms and everything. It's just very different moods. So that's why I paint skies, and I probably always will. So this is a view from my house, and my husband and I get out and take photographs. You know, in the evening we'll set up a couple chairs and take photographs of the sunsets. And I do use my camera because, you know, sunsets are just constantly changing. There's no way that I'm going to get what I can get in my studio plein air. It's just not going to happen. So I love my camera. It's kind of a newer, it's an EOS 90D. And one of the things I love about it is that I can push this. And look, you can see. And so I can, when I'm taking pictures, I'm doing the compositions, and then there's settings here where I can change this I can't remember what you call it, but anyway, it changes how dark and light it takes, and then for sunsets, I normally do cloudy. So I like to play with the settings, and then I can I can do a lot of the work really with my camera in terms of, you know, composition and figuring out values and that kind of stuff. So this is the AEB setting. This is the same sunset, and you can see this is 0, -1, and -2. So it kind of helps me visualize. Oh, you can't really see this one because it's so dark. I don't know. Can you see this better? Yeah. And then I use the zoom and vertical. I mean, I really play around. Like a couple days ago, there was a sunset, and I think I took about 100 pictures. Wow. You know, doing verticals, horizontals, zooming in, zooming out, and just kind of seeing what I can find. Now you have to realize that that the photographs are not going to be true to the color, and you really have to, you know, I have to remind myself, like in this picture, the sun was actually red. But, you know, as you get closer to the sun, it loses its color. Around the sun, it's generally kind of more peachy or kind of an orangey yellow, you know. But it'll photograph, like it'll whiten. You know, you'll lose a lot of detail. So you want to kind of, and so I'll remember that. And I think I've been looking at them long enough to remember that yellow is not that way, you know, and that there's a lot of detail loss. There's probably some kind of that beautiful mint olive green in there. And this is my studio.
You have enough pastels yet?
You know, I have more than I've probably used in a lifetime. And I do work from a computer monitor because, you know, printing it out, you're just going to lose a lot of color. So when I'm trying to, especially in the beginning, when I'm looking at what I'm going to do, I'm considering what my focal point is going to be in my painting. Value masses are really important, like designing your designing masses based on values in the painting. Rhythm is important to me, color harmony, and then edges are real important too, because if I don't get, some areas can be really soft, but some areas need to be real crisp. And then the linear and aerial perspective. And this is the painting I'm going to be working on today. And I cropped that. It was weird. I was shooting it, and I found that if I tilted my camera down a little bit, I could get a darker photograph. Okay, so what I start paintings by this. Liz Haywood Sullivan taught me this. I divide it in fourths and I divide it in thirds all the way around, and I do the same for my reference. And I use this printout only for the composition. And this is helpful in two ways. It helps me stay, it helps me know that, okay, this piece is a third here. You know what I mean? So it helps me stay where I want to be in the picture. And then it also kind of helps me figure out compositionally, like where the focal point is. So I'll probably, when I paint this, I'll probably move this over a little bit so it's in the third. So I really use these for compositional aids, and you can see, like this line here is at the third. This line here comes over to the third. So I really try to plan it out that way. And then I come in and I put in that's a pastel, and it's like I try to just do my values. And also I'm thinking about, well, what do I want to have underneath that might influence the color I'm putting on top? And because this picture is so warm, I went with the warmer colors underneath. So that's it. That's the design of my painting.
What paper are you using?
500 UART. And then I take water. When I'm doing plein air, I'll use alcohol, 90%, not the 75%, but 90%. But I like to use water in my studio, and my brush strokes kind of go horizontal, or depending on, what the cloud's doing. And this I consider to be the map, my map for my painting. And then, I don't know if you can see it, but I'm thinking about the value differences here. And just as a tip, like, you can get on your camera and take it in black and white, and it'll show you if that value is going to work or not. So then I start putting in my color. And then within that value mask, I don't think you can see it, but I start gradating, like maybe using a lighter, just a tiny bit lighter value mask, and I start adding lots and lots of different colors. Like a lot of artists will say, just use a certain number of pastels, in your painting. I don't know how they do it. I can't do it. I thought about it. I usually, my whole tray is usually full of pastels because I like to use a lot of different color variations in my, in the various masses. And so this is pretty much where I am now, you know, where I'll start. This is one thing, the Southeastern Pastel Society asked me to do like an online thing. So I grabbed some things that I thought were really good, that I really liked learning. You know, when you do that kind of thing, you learn. You know, like you have to, what am I going to talk about? Well, I better do some research. So, but this is what I'm talking about in terms of the masses. Like, you, in a value mass, you want to have them similar. If they're too spotty, the composite, you know, the design will go away. Do you see what I'm saying? Does that make sense? And another thing that I really love, I found Joseph Albers in my 20s. This is a wonderful book of color studies, and what he did, like he put this square and this square actually the same color. So the whole point is that color really depends on the color it's next to. This is another one, which is kind of hard to see, but this square and that square are actually these two colors, but on the screen they look like they're the same. And I did get some paper in my 20s, and I did my own experiments, which are really amazing to do. And these two colors, and this is the same, but they don't look the same, the X's. And then also, like, sometimes, you know, colors that are really bright, it's hard to see if they're the same value or not. So if you ever want to check, just take a black and white photograph of it. And then another person that I looked at was Daniel Green. And this is one thing that I use a lot too, is colors are either warm or cool. And so when I'm trying to choose what pastel to choose, I'm looking for value, and I'm looking for whether it's warm or cool. And then I love this too. He kind of challenged the idea of aerial perspective, saying that it's really more contrast and edges that create distance in a painting. Okay. Any questions or thoughts or comments?
I think you could write your own book.
Thank you. You know, when I went to school, everybody was into abstract art, so they didn't teach us any of this. And so, you know, I've had to kind of learn it all. And I've done it through workshops. Highly recommend Ken Woody's workshops. I think Albert Handel has been a huge influence. Terry Ford too, I love her, and Sally Strand. And I mean, the resources we have in our pastel community are phenomenal. And here too, Sarah and Marilyn and Bud, we're just very fortunate.
Katherine, did you go to college for art?
I did.
Yeah.
I studied art at DePauw University, and while I was there, I studied art in Rome at the Tyler School of Art, and for one semester, and then one semester my junior year, and then my senior year, I took advantage of the Great Lakes Arts Association. I guess I'm nervous, but and worked apprenticed with an artist in New York, Willard Majette. It's so interesting, like, because he would do these beautiful oil paintings, these amazing paintings, and they were figures that are life-size. He was really interested in that kind of, what's it called, where it looks real. Yeah. But he has a beautiful painting. He was a artist in residence down in Roswell. And he has a huge, beautiful painting of a powwow in the museum down there. Unfortunately, he had a brain tumor and passed away. Okay. So just to warn you, I work really slowly. I kind of hunt and peck, and then I just move the pastel around till I get the effect I want. So please feel free to ask any questions or make any comments you'd like, but that's just the way I work. And that's probably why I have avoided doing demos like the plague. This is like one of my essential tools. It even broke, you know, but I kept it together. It's one of my essential tools because if I ever feel like I'm getting too much pastel on it and it's not doing what I want it to do, I can knock it off, or I can use it to blend. I just love this brush. Also, I tend, as I showed you in my studio, I tend to organize my pastels how I work with various hues, similar values.
Catherine, can you try to speak a little louder?
Let's see, can we do this microphone? I don't know if this will work. Is it on? You have to.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Right. So that's kind of how I organize everything. And then also, I love little newbies. You know, all these little guys. You know, because they've got edges, and and they're just and they're really. And then I have a whole tray full of them. So it's like, wow, if I want to choose, different hues, I got a lot to choose from here. So
Katherine, do you pick out your colors and values ahead of time before you start them?
no,
Okay.
no, I just no. I mean, I
just grow as you go.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
got it.
Yeah. Now, can you see? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
How far along would you say that painting is right now to completion?
Oh, it's a beginning.
Okay.
Could you move it back a little bit?
Huh?
Could you move it back a little bit again?
Oh, okay.
Don't turn it.
Don't turn it. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
So is that just the underpainting, Katherine?
I don't know that I would call it the underpainting. I think because my underpainting was where I did the water, but this is where I'm starting to find the colors. Like one of the important areas right here is this relationship. And this is also an example of where edges are important, like right here. And if you get sloppy about edges, then it can start to look dirty. Okay. All right. I picked this image because I wanted to show you some of the glazing techniques, you know, and then there's like there's glazing, there's hard lines and or hard edges and then also I like the mood of it, like kind of the dark moodiness of it. Okay. So I think one of the first things I'm going to do is knock this off.
Catherine, is your paper mounted?
Yeah, I always, because I frame without a mat, I always mount my paper. I buy it mounted on, you know, how you Dakota sells it.
Oh.
Okay, so I'm thinking the reason I didn't like this was because it was too cool. And I wanted something a little warmer. And it's interesting too, like some pastels just go on the way you want them to, and some don't. So I think part of the process of choosing the pastel I want also depends on how, if it's getting the effect I want. And I think it's always a good idea to try it first and see if that's what you want, rather than going full bore and thinking, oh man, now I got a problem.
Do you favor any particular pastels?
I like them all, really. And they all have their different uses. Like, I love the grit you can get in Townsend's, and I'm going to see if this will work a little better. And then Schmeike are just like, oh, they're so soft. And then I have a box of, what are those real French ones? The Roche. That I haven't even opened. I have it for a year and I'm like savoring. And I use a lot of Terry Ludwig.
Catherine, do you usually paint with your computer lower than your picture?
No,
Or
it's
do you
just
paint with it more on a level with your picture?
yeah, right here. This I know there's a lot more colors here than what it's showing me, and that's kind of bugging me. I don't know if this would help, but
So do you use more than one photograph sometimes to get that color because of the difference in exposures?
Yeah, sometimes. And like if I want to do this, if I want to do the background, I'll take this and well, that didn't, or the foreground, that didn't work on this, but a lot of times if I want to get information that was blacked out, I can mess around with it.
Is that a Windows or a Mac?
Mac.
What program are you using there?
It's the iPhoto. Yeah. Yes, Nancy.
Do you have plastic gloves with the fingers cut out?
I do.
Isn't that like the opposite of what?
I can't, you know, like I couldn't paint with the fingers.
Well, then what do you need the rest of the plastic glove for?
Well, because I usually hold them, you know, and my hands get really, and then I use this gloves in a bottle. Thank you.
Can you still see
Oh,
right?
no. Well. And pressure is really important too. Like I'm using a really light pressure. And then I'm thinking, well, this is too red in here. So I'm gonna, Nicholas, could I have a little more light? Yeah. So I'm trying to get, that didn't work.
That okay?
Well, yeah, it's all right. It's okay. So see how I can keep some of that red and and I love how light just like, you know. Art Spectrum is really nice too, in terms of the way it applies. People ask me about blending, and I blend with my pastels.
It's hard to tell what color or family you're using at present. So are you using maybe blues or
I'm using a red, it's kind of a red, like a burnt red.
I see.
And then I'm going over it with a kind of a red purple.
The fan brush you use, it blends a little bit too, doesn't it?
Sometimes, and I did this with this, like I'll get, I'll be putting on a bunch of color, and then I'll just come and I'll knock it all off, and it's really cool, what stays behind.
How many of those brushes do you go through in a year?
Oh, this one I've had forever. This is my
The one
friend.
I use, I've chewed up.
Well, the one, for the water base, those don't last.
Oh, is that why?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. Because I'm using a little more pressure, but this is just very light, when I use it, so it doesn't eat it. Okay, so then I have this here to see the color and also to clean my pastel. There's nothing more annoying than, putting something on and it's dirty.
Is that a Viva paper towel?
I don't think you can get those anymore. Albert Handel used to use those because they had the right texture or something when he was doing it. So I don't know if you can see that I'm starting to get some
Have you had any problems with UART boards, bending?
not so much bending, but like this paper, the paper started coming off. I can stick my fingernail under here. So that it's perfect, to just cut it, but that's the only problem I've really had. But I lay my paper flat. I have shelves, and so I keep it flat. See, some of this came down on here, so I'm just going to knock it off. Thinking, a lot of times too, I'm thinking, what color, and you pick up a color, and it gets back to that Joseph Albers, where you think that will never work, and when you know, there it is. It's exactly what you need, especially. Like sometimes I'm looking for like an orange green here because the orange is, you know, there's so much orange in the sky, but yet there's a green underneath. And that can be, I have to find the right one. And it's counterintuitive a lot of times what it is. That's why I think it's a really good idea to look at those color studies. Do I like that? Kind of hard to see the colors, but we'll see. I have my studio. I have my husband got me some LED lights that are corrected, you know, for the sky. So I have really bright lights. I think light is really, really important. I used to have the halogen. And it was so funny, they'd get hot. I'd be underneath them and they're hot.
Good in the wintertime.
Yeah.
So what color paper do you usually start with?
Just the regular buff color.
Like below your painting there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the way you want it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you know, I do my underpainting to kind of. I think this is working. So I do, you know, like I try it a little bit and I think, well, and then if you notice too, like I put this on top of a green and it's totally different than putting it on top of the orange. And so you can do like make really happy discoveries that way. And I think it's really important to stand back and look at what you're doing. See if there's anything that aren't working. And I think it's important, you know, if there's something you think, oh, I'll get to it later. No, because then you might end up fixing something that didn't need to get fixed, you know. This was a palette in here. This was the palette that I used to get to where I was here. So I'm drawing mostly from this, and then I brought this for anything else I might need. Okay, I'm using a little cooler red here. Daniel Green, in that video I have of his use of color, talks about that you should either use the warm side of the colors or the cool side of the colors in terms of color harmony. And when you look at his work, I mean, they're beautiful. It is. His color harmony is just gorgeous.
Are you ever tempted to divert greatly from your photograph and just kind of go off on a tangent that isn't in the photograph, but just...
Sometimes, but mostly if I do, it's towards the end. It's like, you know, like if I want to have some kind of rhythm, or I got a spot or something, or, you know, like a cloud there needs to be a cloud in a particular, not a cloud in a particular spot. Okay, so I'm using more of a green to go over the aqua. And the aqua still comes through. Liz Haywood Sullivan is really a great resource for skies. She's got some videos, and I've learned a lot from her, including, you know, how the skies change in color as you come down, you know, depending on where the sun is.
Who is this?
Liz Haywood Sullivan.
Katherine, why do you use water at home and not the alcohol like you do out in plein air for your undertakings?
Well, I was using alcohol, but I think it had like a little residue on it, but that was a 75, and I don't really notice it so much. The alcohol dries fast out in the sun, you know, when you're doing plein air, so you don't want to stand around and wait for it to dry. Or at home, I don't have that.
Oh, okay.
And anyway, it does dry, you know, water does dry pretty fast under the lights. It's cheaper. That's not it. See, a lot of it's like hunting and pecking for the right color.
How many hours would you say you put into a painting like that?
Oh, gosh. I'd say maybe 10, on an average. Maybe, depending on the size.
But that doesn't account for like thinking about the photograph and the
Right, and
composition and
taking it.
choosing it and making those decisions too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Light. Too light. Okay, so what do I want? Let's try this. Hard pastels sometimes are nice for blending too. Now I have a decision to make. The photograph is going to show more contrast, so I have a decision to, do I want this to be lighter or do I want that contrast? And so I think I'll start out with seeing if I can find a color that I would like to use for the contrast. I don't like that color, it's too dull. So I'm going to come in and try to brighten it up. And if I don't like it, then
Katherine, could you talk a little bit about the frames you use? I love your framing.
Oh, thank you. I used to get them at Teresa Youngblood, and but she stopped carrying that frame. So I went into like a huge crisis and spent several days trying to find it online, and I found a company called South Star that carries that molding. And the reason I like it is it's not silver, it's not gold, and it's kind of has an iridescent, it kind of shines a little bit, it's not a lot, and it's kind of and also it works on almost all my paintings, so it makes it so easy. But anyway, I did order some from them, and they came, and they did a really good job, so my panic has subsided. And I'll go to Teresa. I use AR glass, and also I know some people do, but I do not put my pastel right against glass, because you talk to framers, and you know, it might not be so much of a problem here, but if any moisture gets in there, it will ruin the pastel. I always use spacers. And if I buy a painting that doesn't have spacers, I take it to Teresa and have her put spacers in.
So do you wind up framing it yourself?
I do. I get all the stuff from Teresa, and then I put it together. And I really like doing that because, you know, if there's an edge or something, or there's a spot, or there's some kind of correction I want to make last minute, I can do that. So, yeah, so I do frame myself.
And once again, the name of the place?
South Star Molding. They're out of Oregon.
Uh-huh.
So you ship your work, I know you ship your work to a lot of places. Do you use fix-it at all before you ship?
I do. I use the Scout. That does not change the color. And
What's it called?
Lascaux, Lascaux. And just recently, I saw that they have a UV protection in the spray, which is really good. Like if you look at the IAPS thing of how color changes, you know, how pastels can be fugitive, just having that extra layer of protection is good. And then I use AR glass, which is a kind of doesn't reflect as much, and it has some UV protection. The best is museum glass, but that's really expensive. And I use the Scout because at one point I wasn't, and I would get them back. I got a couple back, and the pastel had gotten on the glass, and I had to take it apart and fix it. But the Lascaux seems to really help with that.
And when you ship them framed and under glass, how do you do that?
Airfloat, FedEx. And really I don't. The only problems I've had have been come from 2 museums. Yeah. So, and I don't even pay insurance anymore because they don't pay. So I figure the amount of money I'm saving on the insurance will cover any losses I have.
How do you spray the Lascaux?
I put it on the ground, and then I, you know, spray a little bit, and then I just spray it, or I'll hold it, you know, and spray it outside. Yeah, because it's stinky. Okay. 8 minutes left? Oh, thank God. Well, do you guys get the idea of how slow I work? Is there anything you'd like me to show you before
Glazing.
glazing? Okay, I've kind of been doing that all along here. When you, at the end, you know, come up and you can see. You can see the variations of color that I've used a little bit better.
Catherine, do you add any color to the ground? Oh, you know, you can see the dark strip along the bottom, that's the earth.
Yeah.
Is there color? From here you can't tell.
Yeah, well,
Color in there.
yeah, it's dark, but that's for some. I think generally I work top down because the pastel dribbles down.
Yeah.
I just wanted to show you this area for the demo, but yeah, what I'll probably do is I'll put you know, like there's mountains and there's just this beautiful blue. Sometimes I'll put, if you really look, there's like a little red line in the horizon. With the sunset, I'll put that in. Or a lot of times I'll have trees, you know, and try to get some of the reflected light in the trees. It's all pretty subtle. I always have a tendency subtle work. Scribble, and I really have to pay attention to my mark making. You'll see it right here. I put a little variation in here. So I just found myself doing that. One of the things too that I really learned is I have always, especially drawing, I always have a tendency to scribble, and I really have to pay attention to my mark making, you know, because my brain just wants to go, you know, but then you got a mess. So I just found myself doing that. Yeah, and I love like when you're looking at the sunset, you see. So this kind of gives me an idea that this needs attention. Miles and miles. So sometimes it's lazy like that's kind of what you can do. Yeah, and I love like when you're looking at the sunset, you see the moisture, but you can also see through it miles and miles. So sometimes with the glazing, that's kind of what made me think of that. Your light is light, your darkness is dark. So you have like your range. I like that color. Doesn't work. Maybe.
Quick finish.
Ta-da!
Yeah. You don't ship it.
Sometimes that'll give you. Oh, and Maggie Price always talked about when you first start, put your lightest light and your darkest dark in. So you have like your range.
Katherine, you have 3 minutes.
Okay.
Quick finish.
Ta-da!
Where are you going to put your signature?
Right. Oh, it's fun. I have headphones and listen to music. And I go into my own little world.
Thank you.